Hello, my name is Father Len McMillan, and welcome to Exploring Catholicism. Welcome to Exploring Catholicism. My name is Father Len McMillan. I'm the pastor here at Pope St. Pius X. Today, we're going to be talking about the Archangels. We'll start with this image of the Archangels that I absolutely love. It's this Russian icon, Rublev's icon of hospitality. It's the three angels eating with Abraham in the story of Genesis. And Jewish tradition said that it's Raphael, who's on the left, who healed Abraham of his circumcision, and Gabriel, who informs Abraham of Sarah's pregnancy, on the right, and in the center square is Michael. So these are the three archangels. So today's lecture is going to be on Michael. And the name Michael means who is like God. So it's a question. And I just love the story about how Michael gets his name. And there's this 5th century story about Satan. And the story about Satan goes like this. When God created the universe, or creation, each part of creation has some bit of responsibility for another part of creation. So God creates the tetramorphs, and the tetramorphs are supposed to guide the seraphim. And the seraphim, they're supposed to guide the angels. And the angels, their charge was to guide humanity. So when God decides to make humanity, he charges the angels responsibility over them. And Lucifer, who's an angel, he's indignant at this, and he says, "We are made of light and they are made of mud. I will not serve." So when Lucifer says, "I will not serve," he's not saying, "I will not serve God." What he's saying is, "I will not serve humanity, that he's too good for us." He wants to serve only God. And you find that theology alive today, and some people say, "Well, I love God, I just hate my neighbor." Or, "I love God, but I'm not going to help anybody else but myself. It's just me and Jesus." That's actually Satan. Lucifer becomes Satan. That's Satan's theology. So one angel, when Lucifer says, "I will not serve," one angel's reply to Lucifer was the question, "Who is like God?" And it's a story of Michael. Michael, his name is Michael, and it means who is like God. It's Michael's rebuttal to Satan. And Michael is pictured as one who has the stubbornness to say no to Satan. So I love that old story. How Michael got his name is because he's stubborn. Who is like God? And the answer is no one. We serve God and humanity. So Michael, his symbols are a sword and sometimes a spear. Most often you'll see if an angel is carrying a sword, it's probably Michael. But sometimes he carries a sword. Sometimes he carries the scale of justice. So in this English cathedral, they have this icon of Michael, and he's carrying the scales of justice. Sometimes if you see an angel with a bull, that's going to be Michael, because there's this Italian apparition of St. Michael, which I kind of like, where this bull wanders into a cave. And he wanders into a cave, and the shepherd goes after him. And in the cave, there's these healing springs. So it's one of the few apparitions of St. Michael, and it's noted with a bull. Or if you see an angel carrying fire, that's Michael. So Michael is also pictured with the sun sometimes. So those are his symbols. Now, where Michael appears in the Bible is, first of all, in Exodus, where in Exodus he's charged to guide the Hebrew out of Egypt. And The Jewish theology of angels is that the weakest people get the strongest angels. And the weakest people in that time period was the Hebrew. They were the weakest of all people. That's why God chose them. And God sent Michael to guide them out of Egypt. In Daniel, Michael is mentioned twice. The first time as one who helps Daniel, and the second time he's mentioned regarding the end times of the world, where he will stand for the children of thy people. The next time he's mentioned is in the letter of St. Jude, where Michael is said to guard the tombs of Moses and Eve. And it says that he contended over Satan for the body of Moses, because the story behind that is that Satan wanted to take Moses' body as a relic and have the people worship it. And Satan lost that one, as he always does, because no, Moses' body would be a relic, but we're only to worship God. And the final time he's mentioned is in the book of Revelation, where Michael and his angels will do battle with the dragon. And so he is the military commander of heaven. He's the most powerful of all the archangels. And so Jewish tradition says that it was Michael the archangel, who is the angel that appears in the burning of the bush to Moses. He protected their going out in Exodus because he's the strongest. And there's a story in the book of Daniel that I really like about Michael, because in the Daniel story, Daniel is praying and the angel Gabriel is supposed to show up, but the angel Gabriel is not showing up. The angel Gabriel does show up and says, well, why were you late? And Gabriel says, well, because I was battling a demon in Persia and I couldn't defeat him, so I had to call on Michael. So I just love the story that Michael comes even to the aid of Gabriel to defeat this demon. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it mentions Michael a lot, where Michael will be the one that defeats the darkness. And Michael is the strongest of the archangels. And so Saint Michael, the archangel, is what in Hebrew is called a Goel. So a Goel is a defender. A Goel is, I love the theology of a Goel, that God makes some people just a little bit stronger. Some people have a little bit more steel in them. And God creates them to be a defender of the weak. And so Michael is the strongest of all angels, and his charism actually is to defend the weak. Also, Michael is known as the protector of the Eucharist. So he keeps watch over all the tabernacles everywhere in the world. Now, in the book of Revelation, it does say that every tabernacle has an angel, but Michael is the one who defends the Eucharist as well. There's also this story about St. Michael I like from the 17th century in this monastery of St. Mary's, where this crowd was attacking the monastery. And this nuns get scared, so they run and they hide in the chapel. And the nuns didn't want the Eucharist to be desecrated, so they hid it under their scapular. And they're cut off and they're trapped in the chapel, and they didn't know what to do. So they moved the statue of St. Michael to block the doorway and pray for protection. And when the crowd bursts into the chapel, they see the statue of St. Michael, but except for them, it was Michael, and they're driven out with fear. So once again, Michael proves to be the guardian of the tabernacle. Now, there's often this image of the battle, the war of the angels, and I actually do kind of like this idea that we are involved in this war between the good angels and the bad angels, but it's not we who will defeat them. It is Michael and his angels. Saint Anthony in the desert had this vision of Michael as well, that Michael, he could call on Michael. Saint Joan of Arc, she attributes her military success to following the advice of Michael the Archangel. So Michael, the military commander, I love this story that really what defeated the English invading France was Michael the Archangel directing Joan of Arc. And Blessed Anne Emmerich, she had this vision of St. Michael putting his sword back into his scabbard, as a sign that one day all the persecutions of the church will end. And so the sword of Michael, when it's in its scabbard, is supposed to give us hope that, don't worry, victory will be ours. We already know the end of the battle. So if you ever see the sword, his sword in his scabbard, that's supposed to be a sign that, don't worry, victory is ours anyhow. And knowing that Michael is there, rejoice when you're persecuted, even when you're suffering, because you know victory will be ours. So I like that one of Blessed Anne of Emmerich. Then in France, there's this monastery of Saint Michel, and the monastery is built there because supposedly Michael appeared before a bishop and wanted a monastery built there, and as a sign, cured 12 people of blindness. And so that spot was dedicated to Saint Michael. The other apparition of Michael was Pope Leo XIII. So on October 13th, 1884, exactly 33 years to the day before the miracle of the sun at Fatima, Pope Leo had this terrifying vision of the future of the church, of times of great persecution. So he was with a handful of cardinals and the Vatican staff, and Pope Leo had just finished celebrating Mass at the Vatican Chapel, and so he suddenly stops at the foot of the altar, and his face turned ashen white, and he remained there for about 10 minutes in this trance state. And people actually thought he had died because they said he had no pulse. But later, when he asked what happened, Pope Leo said that when he was about to leave the altar, he heard two voices. One voice was of a kind and gentle nature, while the other one was guttural and grating. And he listened to the voices, which seemed to be emanating overhead. And the conversation went like this. Satan says, "I can destroy your church." And the Lord says, "Can you? Then go ahead and do so." Satan, "To do so, I need more time and more power." And the Lord replies, "How much time? How much power?" Satan says, 75 to 100 years, and a greater power over those who give themselves over to my service. And the Lord says, "You will have it." And after that vision, Pope Leo immediately went from the chapel to his private office and wrote the prayer of St. Michael, and was given instructions for Catholics to pray the prayer of St. Michael after every low Mass. So like even here at St. Pius, after daily Mass, we always say the prayer of St. Michael. Recently, there was an apparition of 4 kids in Spain where they said St. Michael appeared to them. I really know nothing about that too much, other than I do believe Michael from the very beginning of Genesis to Exodus to even now. Michael is the strongest of all the archangels, and he is defending us. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this series on the archangels is on the Feast of the Archangels, it's a custom to consecrate yourself to the archangels, or at least one of them. So in Ireland and England, they have this 3-day fast to those who wish to dedicate themselves to St. Michael before the Feast of the Archangels. And so I want to bring this out. If anybody wants to dedicate themselves to one of the archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, I say we as a parish pick one of your archangels and dedicate yourself to him. There's actually also a chaplet to St. Michael that you can pray, but St. Michael is a patron saint of firefighters and cops and the military, because they are the Goels. They are the protectors of the weak in our society. So I do like that. And it seems to me that there's this disrespect for authority in the United States. And yes, in the news there are some bad cops, but I still think we should respect all cops. And I was actually talking to one cop, and I asked him what his feelings were. And he says, there's bad cops everywhere. And sometimes for years they were just passed along, and they're protected by the system. But they really should have never been allowed to be cops. And he said most cops are actually quite noble. And I think that is actually true. There's bad police, but there's bad doctors. But I hate the fact that there is in the United States this almost hatred towards cops and defenders. I think we should respect them and their sacrifice. They're putting their lives on the line to protect us, hoping to go back to their families. And so if you have a devotion to St. Michael, then yeah, call for respect of all the Goels, prosecutors, cops, firemen, those who put themselves in danger to protect other people. The other thing is that with St. Michael, he's the strongest of all the archangels. With him, we will win. Now, for me, he's not the angel that I actually consecrate myself to. I'm more of a Gabriel person. So we'll be covering the Archangel Gabriel in the next section. If you like today's topic, you can join us in person in the Great Room here at Pope St. Pius. The in-person classes will be longer and have more discussion, so please consider joining us in the Great Room. God bless.